Hello, everyone. Can you hear me fine? Yes. Okay, great. Let's begin. So I'm Sharad Agrawal. I'm a program manager with Microsoft, and I'm primarily responsible for code search feature in Visual Studio Online. Today, we are going to cover several aspects around understanding architecture, design, and implementation of code. And in particular, we'll talk about code architecture and finding different points, starting points of code within your organization's code base. We'll also explain how we are making it easier for developers to get all these abstractions right from their code and not with some manual efforts like paperwork or whiteboard, etc.
Hi, my name is Matthew Onion. I am a program manager in Visual Studio. I own the Code Lens feature in Visual Studio. So here's the agenda for today. We'll start off with an introduction to two of the features that we are going to talk about, Code Map and Code Search. How many of you here have used Code Map? Okay, that's I think about 20% of the people. So I'll do a section where I introduce the features there, so those who are unaware of it can learn about it. And we will then go to an end-to-end scenario flow, where we will pick up these four scenarios that we want to cover. We'll start off with a problem, how to go about understanding the root cause of the problem using these tools. Then try and understand the overall architecture of an application, so with the intent of making a fix for that issue that we hit earlier. And once we identify the fix for a problem, how can we use these tools to understand the impact of that change on the rest of the system? And we'll end with discussion of the technical debt that you will accrue when you do more features and how we can measure them and how we can control that. Okay? And we will end up with a set of resources where you can go in and learn about these features in depth. Now, when we are going through the scenario flow, I will highlight those features that are new in this latest version of Visual Studio. Okay, we'll start with the demo. So here I have Visual Studio open with the My Shuttle demo app. I can create a new code map from the architecture menu, choose new code map. This brings up the design surface on which we can visualize our code. How do we add code elements onto the surface? You can drag and drop them from the Solution Explorer. So in this case, I wanted to understand the behavior of the universal app component in here, and I dragged and dropped it onto the code map surface. And what it does is it actually draws all the components inside that in here. Let me just collapse this one. And another feature in code map is that you can lay out that code map in different formats. So I can choose here bottom to top layout. And notice how each node has an icon on it, which tells you what type of node it is. In this case, this is a phone exe, and the one on top is a Windows exe. Yet another entry point for adding nodes onto a code map and visualizing that code is to select any node in your Solution Explorer, and on the Solution Explorer toolbar, there will be a Show on Code Map option. It will then get added onto this existing code map. And not just that, there are arrows drawn from those components to which the new component has any kind of relationship. Notice how the icon for this one is a portable library. And you don't have to remember all the icons. The legend actually tells you what type of project we are referencing to. So if at any time you are not able to understand what a particular thing means, you can quickly see that by bringing up the legend. Now, a third entry point is you can select any particular file or class within that. Let me, at this moment, choose My Rights View model, right-click on it, and again do a Show on Code Map. So you're able to add elements to the code map and visualize them from multiple different places. So we have enabled that kind of entry points. Now let me double click on it. So here you will notice that the visualization and the code editor side by side. You can navigate from one to the other. Now, at this point, let me quickly digress and introduce the one feature, which is code lens. This is the line above it, each method or class. And you can see here a visualization of what are the various changes and different authors who have made those changes. In this particular case, we have had 5 people make these changes, and in the timeline, how it is getting used. This is especially useful if you hit a bug and want to see if a particular change has caused the problem that you are investigating. Another aspect of the code lens is that you can see the full list of all the changes along with the authors who have made those changes. I don't have it here, but you can also see if there are any unit tests which test this class. Those tests will be available here, and you can run them from that too. Now back to our code map. Here I have my rights view model. One of the things that we can do here is you can right-click on it and do additional operations. So for example, I want to see all the base types of that. What it will do is it will perform that search and draw it on the code map right there. So you can explore from the code editor onto the code map surface. And let me not focus on externals for now. And I'll close this. Okay. Now, similar to what we did in the code editor, where we did show all base types, we can do similar operations on the code map also. So I can right-click here, and this time let me do a show derived types. Okay. Now, I'll change to a left to right layout. Now, if you'll notice, there seems to be an inheritance relationship between the Windows exe. Let me lay out once again so that it's a bit more clearer. So you can see that there is an inheritance relationship between the Windows exe and the My Rights View model, but there is no relationship in the Windows Phone. Now, what I can do also is I can flag that node for follow-up and add a comment to it. So I right-click on it, and I can add a comment. Why is there no inheritance for rights view model? So here we have started visualizing the code. We can annotate it with rich information so that it becomes an effective medium for our communication. Not just that, you can immediately share this particular model, send it out as an image. So it will automatically start up Outlook, and this is the view. It will capture it as an image and put it in the email so that you can send it out to your colleagues in your team and whoever you want to share this out with. So if you remember, the scenario that we wanted to do was understand and visualize that code. Previously, we had to do it on a whiteboard, and that gets lost, and you may miss out on something because you didn't realize it. But here, you don't have any chance of missing out something because we are automatically collecting it direct from the code and visualizing it on the surface. So at this point, let me quickly summarize what I showed you here. So I showed you the code map, how you can use it to visualize and understand the code, how various components fit in together in this. We could navigate back and forth from the code to the code map, perform operations in the code editor, which will then show in the code map. We could also annotate and enrich the diagram and share it with your team. Okay. Now I'll hand it over to Sharath to give you an introduction of the code search feature.
Thanks, Matthew. So how many of you have heard about code search in Visual Studio Online? Very few hands. Yeah. So code search is a very latest feature in Visual Studio Online, and I'll talk more about it. We are in limited preview. While we are in the resources section, I'll explain how you can sign up for the preview. Firstly, why is code search needed? Well, it's quite obvious working in the development environments. We need a cross-team collaboration scenario. You want to be able to share code across different teams. You want to reuse code. The next is understanding an API. I particularly face this quite a lot. We have this framework team which has implemented in particular API. Now I want to understand how do I implement it? How do I leverage that particular API? Well, there is a lot of documentation, etc. But I know there are other teams within my company who have implemented it already. You want to be able to find those implementations in a very easy manner. Not just that, you might also want to understand how the framework team itself has implemented that particular API. You want to know the definition of that particular API so that you can make the best utilization of that particular API. Third is troubleshooting scenario. You hit an exception, you hit an error, a failure, some message shows up, you don't know what is causing it. You want to understand what is the potential root cause which is causing that issue, and maybe drill down further to finally pinpoint the exact issue. All this is good, but there are certain challenges today. Firstly, there are multiple code bases across your organization. You cannot have all of them on your development machine to be able to search code across it. You want rich filtering capabilities. I particularly want to be able to scope it down to a particular project or a repository or maybe within a particular file path. I'm looking only for, say, JavaScript-based search. I don't want to see results showing up from, say, C# files or CPP files. And further categorizations with respect to even code elements. Like, for example, I'm only looking for class definitions. I'm only looking for references. This is an interesting scenario. Now, imagine you are on a production machine. You are trying to debug some issue that has happened on a production scenario. Now, you're logged in onto that machine, and you want to understand what is causing that issue. Now, you cannot switch. It's pretty tough to switch back and forth from your production VM to your development machine because all the code is lying there. So you need a web interface, some way you can easily find all the code even in your production environments. So that I'll move over to the demo part of it. I'll explain and introduce how the code search is. Okay, so this is my account homepage on Visual Studio Online. I can see that there is a new search code box that is showing up on the account homepage. Also, there's a search hub. If you open it, it'll give you the list of all the projects that you have in that particular account. If you're in the Code Explorer tab of a particular project, say in this case I've picked up Roslyn, the search code box shows up here as well. And lastly, the fourth launch point for code search is the search hub within the project itself. Within the project homepage, you can see. So let me click that. So it will list down all the projects that are there. And if you notice, because I was in Roslyn project, it has auto-scoped it to Roslyn project so that you're getting results only from that. I'll give you an example where I'm interested only, I'm trying to understand how different teams in my organization are implementing, say IEnumerable interface. Can you see it? Okay. So you can see all the results showing up here. You can see I have 2,382 occurrences of IEnumerable. Now, I was talking about you want to do a cross-team collaboration. So you want to be able to search across all these things. The number changes. Now it's showing results from all these different projects. Let me scope it back to Roslyn only. Now, as I said, I'm a C# developer. I want to be able to get results only from C# files. So I'm looking at this particular helper dropdown, which gives you different types of scoping, different types of filtering by code element types, and there are also operators. For now, as I mentioned, I'm looking at only C# files. I use the one which is for file extensions. And I'm looking for only C# files, so I type CS there. So now I'm getting results only from C# files. If you notice, there is the project name that is showing up here, then the repository which is having that particular hit, and the file name itself. We also provide the full file path to that particular file, the number of matches within that particular file, and all those set of details. Yeah. Okay. So what I was trying to do was trying to understand how different teams in my organization are implementing the IEnumerable interface. So the other type of filtering, as I was talking about, is using code type filtering. So I want to see only results which are for where IEnumerable is the base type. So now it is showing up only 25 results, and as you can see, I am getting hits only for places where IEnumerable is the base type. You can see on the right-hand side, you can also see the orange indicators, which help you understand what is the distribution of the hit within that particular file. And just a quick note there, the indicators that you're seeing there, it's not just for a particular, we are not just scanning that particular file and searching for IEnumerable. Even the indicators get scoped down to the base type version. So only those instances of IEnumerable within the file which are actually showing up as base types are getting highlighted here. Now, we have also tried providing a familiar interface as with the Code Explorer tab in Visual Studio on Visual Studio Web Interface. So as you can see, there is a contents, there's a history. We provide the same interface here. So for this particular file, I can look at the history, what all changes have happened over time. I can even look at the last specific change that happened and get a diff for that particular change. Yeah. So there are other functionalities that you can go from a right view to a top-bottom view. And for example, you can also clone the particular repository right from here. Okay. We'll talk more about it as we proceed. So let me do a quick recap as to what I just showcased. You can switch to the deck. Thank you. So we were able to search for code across the different projects. I explained how we were able to scope it across all the projects, and then I was able to do it only for Roslyn project. We saw a rich search syntax with different operators and the different types of filtering capabilities. And also the result set was very rich in its user experience in terms of showing the hit highlights, showing the different history, the familiarity with the Code Explorer tab. And lastly, very powerful tool, which is to be able to scope it out based on code semantics. I showcased you how I did it just for base type of IEnumerable. To be able to scope it just with a particular code element, that's semantic search for you. Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll move to a little more concrete scenarios. We'll talk about an end-to-end scenario, how different things can be, as Matthew had mentioned during the agenda slide. What we have done here is we've picked up a few apps, the MyShuttle app, the MS Build, Roslyn. All these are open source. We have deliberately picked some of these applications so that you can try it out yourself. It's easy for you to try out Code Map and Code Search. So yeah, we'll proceed to the end-to-end scenario workflow. Okay. First up is to be able to troubleshoot a particular issue. We want to empower ourselves to be able to find the root cause of a particular issue, an exception that is showing up. Okay, I'll switch to the, yeah, okay. So Matthew was talking about this MyShuttle app. He was talking about the code map for that particular application. I'm just trying to build that particular application. So I have a scenario where I'm trying to build this solution. And what happens is I'm facing some exception. It says solution file error, some error code, error parsing the project configuration on section in solution file. Now, I haven't heard of this issue before, but it talks about some solution file. So let me just open up that particular solution file. And then specifically, because it was talking about parsing the project configurations, let me look at the project configuration section in the solution file. Now I've opened it up. It's a huge list. Things look relatively okay. I don't know what is the exact issue. I'm not able to debug it right from here. What I'm noticing is, yes, there is a new line showing up here. I don't know if that should cause an issue. Usually these things do not. But let me use code search in this scenario to be able to debug this issue. So what I do is I just copy that particular string. Let me clear the filter because I want to search it across the entire code base. So what I'm trying to do here is putting a phrase from the exception and trying to search for it. Now I could have also limited it to say a resource file, so I would have added the extension filter again like ext with resx file. But yeah, so here we have a specific hit that was causing this issue. So you can see that same exception is throwing up here. I can drill down a little further into this. I copy this variable which is storing this particular string. And as you can see, it has given me the first hit, which is having this particular having the reference for this particular variable, solution pass invalid project solution configuration entry. And it is also coming for from the past project configurations, which was precisely what the exception that I saw was. Now, if I'm trying to understand this particular code, it's trying to get all these different entries line by line. It checks if it's null or there's an end global section for it. And then it goes ahead. If not, then it goes ahead and processes that particular line. What is happening here is it's not actually checking for a white space or null, an empty or a white space scenario here. So maybe that's the new line that I showcased was actually the issue. Now, I've done some findings, etc. What I can do is I can look at the code history, what all things, changes, etc. have happened in this particular file. What I can also do is I can share this particular URL with my teammates or some of my other colleagues, and this same URL will work perfectly fine even for them. Let me go ahead and actually maybe make this change in the code base. So I have the same method open here. So I'll just add another entry here, which is let me just continue. If there's a null or white space, just ignore it to the next iteration. So I'm not yet committing the change. I've saved the changes here. But then there is a potential risk. Am I making the right fix? What other impact can it cause? So Matthew will walk you through the rest of the part where he's talking about how to ensure that we have a full understanding before actually making the fix. Recap. Okay. So let me just do a quick recap. Sorry, I missed out. Let me just do a quick recap of what I just showcased with that scenario workflow. I searched across all the projects, because in this case, I didn't know where the exception is coming from. I didn't know whether it was coming from my Shuttle Labs project or it was coming from others. And I was able to find out that the results were coming from MS Build. I did a phrase search, and I also saw the hits getting highlighted for that particular search. We were also able to see what are the recent set of changes happening that have happened in that particular file, and also how we can collaborate using the search URL and directly interact with some of the team members or the owners of the owners who have made the recent set of changes. Okay. So,
quick question.
Sure.
You're demonstrating this in the context of Visual Studio Online. Is
right.
this a feature that is coming to TFS on-prem?
Yes. Yes. It's there. It's there in the pipeline.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so that's a good question. The question is it coming for TFS on-prem as well? Yes, that work is underway. I don't have any timelines yet, but yes, we will be bringing this feature for TFS on-prem as well. That's correct. Go ahead.
Search across multiple repositories?
Yes. So as you can, the question is, can I search across different repositories? So as I was showcasing on the left-hand side, there were different projects showing up. Let me just. Okay, so if I go here, all the different projects for that particular account gets loaded on the left-hand side. If I have selected a particular project, you can drill down to some particular repositories within that project as well. If I have not selected any particular project and it's like nothing selected means selected all, so then it will search through across all repositories. Okay. So but if you have scoped it down to a particular repository, a particular project, then you can sub-filter it within for repositories within that project as well, as you can see on the left-hand side. Okay. Matthew.
All right. So Sharath has identified a root cause, and he wants to make a change in MS Build. Now that's a new application. Now, for example, if you hit the scenario, how do you understand at a high level how the overall architecture of an application is going to be? We can use code map for that. What I will do here is I have this solution open with MS Build, and within the architecture menu, I had an option to generate the code map for the solution, which means it will draw the code map for the entire solution for MS Build. Previously, when we did this, it would go ahead and start building it at first, and then draw the nodes, and then go ahead and draw the relationships among them. What we have done in the recent builds is that we have enabled an option to do generation of the code map without building. So it will pick up the last build that is available for that particular application and start drawing the nodes directly from there. So your performance is significantly improved. The nodes get added immediately. But notice how we haven't actually done searching for all of the relationships. And now it is completed. At this time, it will go ahead and draw all the relationship between various components in here. So you can see here that there are different colors being assigned to different relationships. We can open up the legend. I'll scroll down to the bottom, which will tell me that all the green is inheritance relationship. So there are inheritance relationship between those nodes between which there is a green arrow being drawn. And the purple one is for calls. Now I want to understand this in a little bit more detail. There is a lot of nodes out there, and the diagram itself is cluttered. I want to unclutter the diagram. We have set up a set of new features to enable you to unclutter this diagram. The first one is that you can you see here that we have added a filters window to the side of the code map. You can actually uncheck test assets, and all the test related nodes that are present on the diagram get removed. I am not interested in samples, so I can go ahead and remove those. And let me remove external so that I can focus on just the product code and lay it out. And now we have a picture which is less cluttered. We now understand the relationship between, at the high level, what are the various nodes and how the code is structured for MS Build. Now, Sharad, in his investigations, had landed up in a method called parse project configurations. So let's search for that and add it out here. And as we saw earlier, you can see where exactly it is positioned in the overall architecture. So if you have identified something that needs to be changed, you can immediately see how that relates to the rest of the application by drawing it onto the code map. Now, another important thing in the filters section is that it shows various relationships and code elements that are present in this. And we had unchecked test assets to hide them. Similarly, if you want to focus just on a particular type of relationship, for example, I don't want to see project reference or external reference. So you see those arrows which were present in that. Let me zoom it a little bit. And there was an arrow from build DLL to the framework DLL, which was a project reference. Since I'm not interested in that, we will hide that from the code map. And what it will do is now any future operation that you perform on this particular code map will keep that filter. So if there is a project reference, we will not show that. Let me put that back for now and open another code map that I had created. This one is an inheritance relationship. Let me zoom in a bit. So what I have done here is that in the filters, I have just chosen inheritance, and I have narrowed it down by removing certain other nodes. So what you can see here is a high-level inheritance map of the MS Build. And if you're familiar with MS Build, you will know that it is structured as a series of tasks, and we can clearly see that in the inheritance map. Right? So there is a task node which is at the root, and there are multiple inherited classes from here. And if you can actually perform additional operations, so on task extension, if I do find all references, you can see that there is an explosion of inherited classes. And it is from task extension that most functionality of MS Build is actually built. So if you want to do, let me not do that. If you want to understand more about MS Build, the task extension and its various inherited classes would be a good example to look at. Okay, I'll go back here. At this point, I want to know if I have found this out using a code map. Can I do the same thing using code search? Sharath, is it possible?
Let me give it a try. So what we are looking for is anything that is being inherited by which has a base type of task. So I again use that particular extension, which is base type, and I use task. Specifically, I'm looking for MS build, so that's the project that I've currently selected. Now, as Matthew was showcasing, there are only 5 such scenarios, right? There are just these 5 entries. What I'm seeing, I'm able to see here that there are results showing up from tests as well. Let me show you another capability of code search. I can add operators. And here I'm going to do some funky stuff. I'm trying to filter it out based on path extension. And notice that I'm also able to do wildcard searches. Do you want? I'll just zoom it a little. So I've given asterisk test asterisk. So something that is not coming from path, which is having test in it. Okay. So as you can see, now even I'm getting exact 5 results. All the 5 occurrences that Matthew was showing up here, even I'm getting 5 results. So what I'm trying to explain here is, using code search, you can use code search also to validate a few things, like how many things are being, there are how many occurrences for a particular scenario, how many people are actually taking a dependency on my particular DLL. So those kind of scenarios are also possible using code search. Matthew, we'll switch back.
All right, let me quickly recap what we showed you in this section of the demo. We were able to build a code map for the entire solution, multiple projects all together, and get a big picture of what is happening in your application. We could then drill down into specific relationships. Right? I showed you a code map which had only the inheritance hierarchy within it. We could also focus on specific code elements. We took out test because we didn't want to focus on it, and we narrowed it down to just the product code that we were interested in within MS Build. We can also zoom into individual components. When we expand out a node, all its child components inside it will get shown. And finally, we are able to identify patterns in code by various exploration within CodeMap. You saw how task was the root node of the entire hierarchy, and that was one of the most important classes which, if you are going to try and understand more about this application, that's a good place to start our explorations. Now on to the next step. Sharad had already identified the change that he needs to make. We have had a look at the application itself and got a high-level picture of that application. We'll go ahead and see if we can understand the impact of making that change. Switch. Okay, so we were in this particular code map, and we want to focus on understanding the impact of making the change in parse project configurations, where Sharad has proposed to add a white space check. I just want to focus down on this particular assembly. I can now do a new graph from a selection in the node. What it will do is it will go ahead and create a new code map and put just that assembly that we are interested in. So focusing again to one particular area. And then from here on, I can just go ahead and do further exploration to understand the impact. So I'm going to do a series of find all references to see where all the method is getting called. Right? So I've done that 4 times, and now when I do this, I see here that is it. No new nodes are getting added. So this is the call flow which finally lands up in parse project configurations. I can also go ahead and double click on solution file, which is the class which contains this method. I see here that it's a sealed class. So I don't anticipate people inheriting it and then having their functionality broken because we have modified the parse project configuration. I can get more confidence by going in and exploring the find all references of solution file itself to understand where the impact of making this change, if at all, it's going to affect anything. Let me go ahead and dock this, get a larger screen area, and use a left to right layout so that we have a big picture. Now, notice here that I immediately see that there is a call relationship out here. I want to investigate that further. I can do that by right-clicking on it and do a show contributing links on new code map. So this is yet another new functionality that we have added. Previously, you had to do multiple operations to get to this place. What we can do now is just get the set of relationships which are contributing to a particular arrow that we see in code map and draw all those just those components in here. And notice also one key thing. Whenever we draw a new code map or add any new node, it will add all its parents also in here. So for example, since this particular node for generate solution wrapper is added, its parent class where it is contained, and also the namespace under which it exists, and the assembly in which it is going to get generated, all are being drawn automatically. This helps you to ensure that you have full context when you're looking at and analyzing a particular problem. And this can be toggled on or off by using this include parents option. So CodeMap will allow you to add this information so that you can continue to have context, or if you're not interested in that, you can uncheck it and future operations will not automatically include the parents of the new nodes that get added. Okay. So at this stage, I'm reasonably confident that the change is okay. Right? We can go ahead and make that change. We will not break any existing functionality. Before I go to the next step, let me recap what we actually saw now. So you saw how we could drill into contributing links and also focus on just one aspect of the code map. We were able to iteratively refine it. I performed multiple find all references to narrow down and see where exactly the changes are being made so that I can understand the impact. You could do additional operations also. You may want to look at all the base types or the derived types to understand how that is getting impacted by what we are proposing to change here. And I talked about how every time we add a component, we draw its containers so that you are kept in context. Okay. Now switching over to the next stage. This is technical debt. Now, whenever we make any change in our code, we accrue some sort of technical debt. What is technical debt? It is those aspects of your project which makes feature delivery slower and less efficient. For example, you may be writing code that is difficult to understand. Right? You could write very long lines. You could make your code very complex so that your team members will not be able to understand it and make any changes in it. Your code could be very fragile. That is, you cannot confidently make any change. Right? There are too many dependencies between various components, and therefore when you touch a particular piece of code, you are not at all confident that it will not break other parts. Or it will be difficult to validate. You cannot write unit tests for that. So when you add new functionality, you don't know if old functionality has broken. All of this is what we characterize as technical debt. And whenever we make a change, we want to understand what our current technical debt is and how that proposed change is going to add to or subtract from the technical debt that we are making. So let me switch over to the demo. And what we are going to do here is we are going to actually make that change that Sharath has proposed. I'll close out the code maps and just make sure that the changes that Sharath has talked about, they are already here. So this is the lines of code that he has added, which is to add for null or white space. I'm going to now commit that change. Okay, and then sync it to the server. Okay, now I have a continuous integration build attached to this particular project. So I have made a change. What it is going to do is it's going to queue a new change. So when I go to Visual Studio Online, I can see that build has already been queued. Right? And let me quickly show you what the build definition for that is. I will go back to my Visual Studio and show you how we have built in the SonarQube integration. Now, SonarQube is a tool for watching your technical debt. It provides a dashboard and it provides a data mart which contains information about technical debt of your application. We have built the integration between SonarQube and TeamBuild in this case. Right? SonarQube is one of the top tools used by the Java community, and it did not have a good experience for .NET, and we have fixed that in the recent release, and we announced the integration between SonarQube and TeamBuild in the build conference last week. And how you can integrate it with TeamBuild is in the process section of an existing TeamBuild. So if you have an existing application, you can measure the technical debt of that application by going out here. Now, there are two places where this integration is done. Are you able to see it? Okay. So, two places. The first one is the pre-build script. So, before the build actually starts, we call this integration component that we have built. And we give it a set of arguments. So, in this case, since I am building for MS Build project, I am giving the key and the name as MS Build, and I also specify a version for that. And after the testing is done, unit tests are done, we give a post-test script, which again calls that same component. And so using these two components, what we are doing is, during the process of TeamBuild being run, we calculate all the metrics that are required for technical debt. And at the end of the MS Build process, we actually publish all of those metrics back into SonarQube, where you can actually see it. Now, let's switch back into our build. It is still going on. So what I will do is I will switch to a previous build and show you how it actually shows up in the build report. So here we have added a new section called SonarQube Analysis Summary, and you can directly navigate to that by clicking on the analysis results. Oops. Okay. So let me call out a set of functionality that is present here. SonarQube actually calculates a set of metrics. This could be lines of code, the files, the directories and lines, etc. It also automatically detects duplications in your code. This is one of the critical aspects of technical debt. If you keep doing copy paste, any fix that you make in one part of your code, you will have to replicate it in n different places. And we can automatically detect for you and help you to go and fix that. Then the next section is about complexity. It automatically detects computes various measures of complexity, and you can see that in the dashboard here. And finally, I want to call your attention to the issue section, where you can see how many issues are present in here. Now, for .NET, what we have done is SonarQube has integrated with the new Roslyn analyzers capability. So since whichever code analyzers Roslyn has built, we can reuse that in the SonarQube analysis, and each of the issues there will get logged as a problem in the SonarQube dashboard if that particular rule that you wrote as part of your analyzer is violated. Now, how do you specify those rules? You go into a quality profile. Now, I'm using the C# quality profile called SonarWay. Now, this has 31 rules out here. These are the default. This is the default that comes when you install the default plugin from SonarQube for C#. Now, these are the 31 rules. If you open up any one of those rules, these rules should be really familiar to you, because they are exactly what you would see in an FXCOP rule also. Right? It has a section for non-compliant code. It shows you how the compliant code looks like. And you can enable or disable these various quality profiles, so you can customize the rules for technical debt for your organization. You may want only 20 of those rules, or you may want a different set of rules. You can actually write your own rule as per the need of your application and incorporate it easily in here. So there is a good extensibility model here. And yet another critical aspect of SonarQube is quality gates. In the quality gates, what we see here is that you can pick any metric that you see in the dashboard and say that if that goes beyond a certain limit, I want the continuous integration build to fail. So you will ensure that if, for example, you can start by saying, no check-in should go ahead and add more technical debt to my application. So if the number of issues that are happening are greater than what is previously there, let the continuous integration build fail. So with a combination of quality gates and the built-in integration from TeamBuild to SonarQube, we are able to quickly ensure that your technical debt is kept under control. Let me switch back and see if the build has completed. I think it has. So we'll go ahead and look at, okay. That's the latest one. And we'll look at this. And I will showcase another aspect of SonarQube, which is to focus on the issues that have happened recently. Right? And there is a filter out here which shows you what has happened since a previous analysis. You can notice what has changed. And this is very important because when you start looking at it, 2,892 issues seem to be too daunting. You don't want to address it immediately. But by just focusing on what has happened since the previous analysis, you get a smaller picture which will help you to focus your attention just on that. And in this case, I'd actually fixed one of the issues that was here. And you can see here that it has actually reduced that number. And I can see specifically that. Yes, question? Yes, there are different types of baselines already pre-built into SonarQube. Like you can actually look over 30 days or since a previous version, etc. And we are actually thinking of, in future versions, thinking of coming up with different other baselines. So the question was, can we look at different other baselines, right? As of now, we have 3 of them pre-built into the system. That is previous analysis, previous version, and 30 days. But we can go ahead and do different things. We have it in the backlog. It will be built as we go along. Yes, sir.
2 questions. One is this work on-prem as well as in the cloud?
Yes. So in fact, my SonarQube actually is running on my laptop as of now, but it is connecting to the VSO build. So the question was, will it work with 2015 or will it work with earlier versions? In fact, it will work with 2013. In fact, that was our primary focus as of now. We have certified it for 2013 TFS today, and the work is on to enable it for 2015 and future versions too. Yes?
A lot of what I'm seeing here looks like a collection of existing FX functionality and code analysis rules.
Okay, so the question was, is this just rehashing the existing FX Corp rules? They use FX Corp. SonarQube actually reuse some of the FX Corp rules, but we are planning to build more and more rules which are independent of that. So it is being built on top of the Roslyn analyzer framework, where you can actually go ahead and build any custom analyzer. And SonarQube will be able to work with all of those analyzers and incorporate that into your product. Yes, it is clearly not just FX Corp, but anything that you write or anything that other people have contributed in here, all of those rules can be built on and used here. Yes.
SonarQube also analyze legacy C++ code?
Yes, the question was, does SonarQube analyze C++ code? In fact, that's one of the key reasons why we have thought of building up this support, because it is very strong in that field. They have a lot of different plugins. I mean, it's a big list. It starts from C++. They have one for SAP ABAP. They have JavaScript. The list is very, very long. So it's a very, very strong ecosystem that is present here. And the problem was that .NET was not a first-class citizen. And we are working with them to ensure that .NET is a first-class citizen, where you can do all the analysis for .NET code and show it up in the SonarQube. Okay? So that's what I wanted to show here. let me quickly recap. So I showed you how we have enabled the team build integration with SonarQube. You just need to download and install the SonarQube integration component onto the team build machine. The process itself has been very clearly documented by the ALM rangers, and it is available. I've given a link where you can actually go in and download and install. It's a very easy process. It'll take you like 5 to 10 minutes to set up a SonarQube and try it out on your system. You can actually see trends of the metrics. We saw how we could compare it. And there is a time machine view where you can actually see the trends over time, how various versions, the various metrics that are shown in SonarQube actually have trended across. And finally, we saw how we could use quality gates to control the level of technical debt and how we can control the set of rules that are enabled using the quality profiles. Yes, ma'am.
Is it feasible to put this on top of an existing project?
Yes, the question was, is it feasible to put it on an existing project? Absolutely. MS Build is an existing project. We have just taken it and enabled the analysis, and the data that you're seeing here is for the existing MS Build project. So, and then once you start integrating with Build, every time you build, it just keeps on building that history, and we are able to see the trends over time also. Okay. Then, so here are the resources for CodeMap. I have added one link, which is for MSDN. We have detailed documentation around CodeMap. You can go ahead and look at that. And in this demo, I focused exclusively on looking at your code and generating the code map. You can also do this while you are debugging. Right? I have added a video link here. You can just open that video in channel link, and you can see how CodeMap is an effective tool while you are actually doing debugging session. And then the last three links are where you can give your feedback also. Now, in the Microsoft ALM blog, we announce all the new features. So since we are doing this continuous delivery, we have Visual Studio updates going every quarter. Every new feature that gets added to CodeMap, we put up a blog out here, so you can, if you watch this, you'll be able to get all our new announcements. We also have an MSDN forum where the feature team always looks and watches out, and if you have put a question out there in that forum, we will be able to respond to you immediately there. And if you have a suggestion, a new feature request, there's a user voice link where you can put it. The more people vote for a particular feature, it automatically goes up in our backlog also. So we have been very sensitive about the user voice request, and we actually drive our backlog now, a great part from the user voice. Sharad?
So as I mentioned, we are in limited preview, and there's a link. When you have the hands-on with the deck, you can use that link for reading our blog about it. Like Matthew mentioned, we are also having, we also cater to ALM blog, and also we are very aggressively looking at user voice right now because we are in very early stages of the feature. If you want to sign up for the limited preview, please shoot a mail to vsosrch@microsoft.com, and we'll sign you up within one business day. Please go ahead, and if you have a Visual Studio Online account, go ahead and sign up for Code Search. Right now, we are limited to Git version control, and we are only available in US regions, but soon we'll be adding capabilities for other regions and TFEC support as well in very short time. Go ahead.
This code map functionality are available in the architecture, under the architecture tab, am I right?
Yes.
Studio.
Yes.
Do you have to have an architecture license with the Visual Studio? Because it's more like a developer day-to-day operation versus in the past, architecture teams had that capability.
That's correct. The question was where exactly in Visual Studio it's available. As of now, it is only available in the Enterprise Edition of Visual Studio. So you need an Enterprise Edition of Visual Studio to create these code maps. Again, this is one of the feedbacks that is currently available on user voice. If you go ahead and vote for it, that becomes a critical input to the decision making that involves in moving the SKUs, etc. around it. Okay, thank you very much.
We are open for questions. Any more questions? And thank you, guys. Do share your feedback with us. We would certainly want to improve and understand what next other features or how we can make it better. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.